He's the only character in the film who is warm and engaging and grounded and charming. Like he's an actual human being who can't cope anymore, and she can't cope with therapy. She can't cope with any of these strategies to try to help. I also am a fan of seeing a comedic actor doing something dramatic, like Conan, or I think
Martin Short.
Martin Short is brilliant. So much sort of prestige TV, but I love it when I have such a soft spot for the show, and Glenn and I are still very close, and I should revisit looking at it maybe. I'm not a fan of watching myself, but it'd probably be really entertaining.
Really, you're not a fan of watching yourself?
Oh, not greatly.
Because this is such a precise performance, but I think you often get really precise performances. I think there are cadences and then nuance verbally you're trying to get, because so often what she's saying, the words are really what she's trying to say emotionally. We sort of hear the shakiness in the voice or the anger in her voice. And I feel like you would study it just because you've done a lot of demanding work.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to compliment you.
But I feel like if my performance is bad in something, it's entirely my fault. But if it's good, it's almost got nothing to do with me in a way.
I am so happy to have Rose Byrne here in the Elvis Suite. I'm sorry. Because this movie, we're used to seeing you play characters, there's your mic, where you are kind of, the characters are kind of ahead of the plot, like in Damages or Bridesmaid. And in this movie, you're not ahead of the plot at all. And also, I was telling you before we got started, there's a shot of basically your eyes for 3 minutes at the beginning of the movie. And for most of the movie, we only see you from the shoulders up. It's incredibly claustrophobic. Was any of that stuff on the page? Did you know she was going to shoot it like that?
Not a little bit. There was some specificities in the script, but the script read as claustrophobic in terms of like you're so in the mother's perspective and Linda's perspective. But as I just shared with you, when I was doing it, the camera was often very close and I'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But then when I saw the film for the first time a few weeks ago, I was like, oh my God, that's what you were doing. She had a very, very clear cinematic kind of language to really express this claustrophobia and this tension. The film never relents the tension the whole time. And then when it does, it's such a relief. It's like the gas valve kind of letting out and you're allowed to laugh and you're relieved to be able to laugh and to gasp or scream or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, there are some laughs in it, but you're laughing as you're horrified at the same time. There's kind of an explosion in your apartment that sort of is the metaphor for a psychological state, all the stuff pouring out that she can't do anything about. Yeah. And there's also, that's a very long shot too, by the way, of all that water falling through the building. Yeah,
and Mary was very, very specific about wanting everything to be as practical as it could. So all of those things were rigged, and it was very, very little post-production on those sorts of stunts in the movie. And she really, like the whole sequence with the hamster and everything was very, very, very practical. So that was a big sticking point for her to make it feel like that for the audience. But yeah, the script has a great symmetry, whether it's the hole in the ceiling and the hole in the daughter and the missing child and her missing child. Like there was a beautiful symmetry in the script, which I think is also on the screen as well, really translates.
Yeah, there are a series of mirrors because it actually ends up at the water. So there's all this sort of these mirrors in the movie. But I think I was sort of struck by too, I wonder if you thought she's a good doctor or not.
No. She's negligible. She could, and the best is when she realizes it, or in the script when it's like when she knows how badly she's been treating her patient to not see the postpartum depression and her kind of slow realization of like the trouble she could get into, and her desperately trying to.
She talks to her patient to leaving her child behind.
Yes. It's like the negligence on her behalf is. You cannot understate how bad that is. So, but it's very humorous at the same time.
Because I was wondering if you thought she was always. Because my assumption is that we're meeting her at this point, this inflection point in her life, where she can't fix her child and she can't really fix her marriage. We never see, there's a lot we don't see in the movie. We really don't see the child until the end. We don't see the husband ever. And I saw myself wondering if this is just her disintegration because there's been so many things that she can't literally get her hands on.
Yeah, I was obsessed reading the script of like, who was this character before the crisis, because she's in such crisis when we meet her and it obviously gets worse. And it's like, what is she without this crisis? And that was something Mary and I talked about a lot, trying to like investigate and uncover, like, how does this person behave prior to this? What are her flaws? What are her weaknesses? What are her strengths? And that was very helpful to me to seeing under pressure how she could not cope and figuring that out. So it wasn't just so it was a little clearer to me, which is important.
It's funny too that she's not, I guess, the area therapist, and then she goes to a therapist who himself is not only not very good, who never looks at her.
I know, she's so mean to him, but Conan's like, but he's a terrible therapist too.
Oh, he's basically, we should say the therapist is played by Conan O'Brien, who never looks up at her, who's always on his back. And
she's not like him at all as a person. Conan's very warm and engaging and will offer sympathy and empathy. And this, it's the opposite to that.
Or his mostly on-screen persona is very wide awake and bouncing up and down and looking right into the camera. So I thought that's actually kind of a great performance because he doesn't give it away.
No, and it's interesting because he's so familiar to American audiences as the most affable, engaging talk show, like as we all know him, and then to like smother that kind of right down and distill it into this uptight, neurotic kind of was very interesting and like entertaining, I think, for the audience.
I thought it was funny too what she does with him because he's wearing all these calm colors, the kind of colors that you would associate with warmth and empathy and interest. And he basically he does everything but look at his watch.
I know. And I don't know about you, but there's a lot of therapists out there. And it's a sweeping spectrum of them and the ones you experience that, the setup they have. And that was something she was really specific to about like the lighting in his office compared to the lighting in her office and the slats kind of lighting on Linda's face. And then in Linda's office, it's like threadbare, terrible, like fluorescent lamp, like really grim, because she hasn't even thought about it. But he's at least tried to set an atmosphere up for the patient. So I love that examination of therapy in a very sort of raw way.
It's really a movie that doesn't have a lot of sympathy for therapists. In fact, it's a scene, which I think is too, it almost seems to be saying institutionally, she's put herself in this place where she can't function because we started that scene with her talking to her family therapist. And then there's a meeting all those therapists. She's standing in front of a poster for the shame spiral.
Yeah, I know. I know, and she's beyond it. And I enjoy that scene later in the movie when the mothers are sort of grieving and they're in the therapy session and she's like this insane lady at the end of the table, like, completely disengaged and cannot cope with the therapy speak anymore. And it's definitely a comment on those sorts of things or on the patient's ability to engage with it, at the very least.
I know, because it's so interesting. Because I guess I found myself thinking, well, there's a terrific performance, first of all, by A$AP Rocky.
Yeah, Rocky's great.
And I was wondering if she was imagining him in some way, because he's so different from everybody else in the show.
He's the only character in the film who is warm and engaging and grounded and charming. Like he's an actual human being and everyone else is, and he's so shining this light and offering to help her. And that was really fun. We had a lot of rehearsals, Rocky and I, and he was so game and so up for it. But I agree, James is the only character, and on the page too, that has any of those sort of qualities in a person that you need that can be helpful.
Because he's actually also too the only person in the story who actually looks at her. Everybody else is kind of looking away, and he looks right at her.
I know, I love that you say that. And then she is she can't engage, or she only can engage to a certain point, and she has such disdain for him at the start, and he's like genuinely this sort of friendly neighbor in the hotel who's like curious and looking outside of himself, and it's almost a relief, I think, for the audience when he comes on, because you're like, oh, this person's engaging. He's like, whereas everyone else is sort of stuck in this well, she is stuck in this trauma.
No, but everybody else is sort of stuck in their own world. It's interesting. It's a movie about people who are, I don't want to say self-absorbed, but can't see past their own noses in a way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And for Linda, it's sort of this asking for help, help me. I don't help. And then if she ever gets it, it'd be like, I don't want your help. That sort of person that they can't help themselves, and I think we all have those people in our life. And Mary and I talked about that a lot, about people in our own life who are their own worst enemy. And that I feel like Linda is stuck in that.
Because I fixed on that shame sparkle poster just because it's funny, but also because her life has been this kind of spiral of sort of unrelenting misery that she can't break out of.
Yeah, and that was, I loved because therapy can become a cliche, and it can, and I feel like with those sort of setups, you can see it from both perspectives of like the reality of these people trying to do their job, and then that complete frustration from someone like Linda who can't cope anymore, and she can't cope with therapy, she can't cope with any of these strategies to try to help, and she's having a nervous breakdown basically, and that I found humor in that, albeit dark humor, but it was something I thought was dealt with in a very refreshing way. But she's the one at fault. You know what I mean? Everyone, they're trying to do their best with her, and she can't see that.
I guess I thought that was funny too, just because I watched it back to back because I felt like I had to see it again.
You did? Wow. This movie is not for the faint of heart. So
I learned that the hard way, but
oh my gosh,
because
the
filmmaking is so kind of extraordinary in it. I mean, like all these really interesting subtle things. Like the only person you kind of see in full figure is ASAP. You know, I really see anybody else's body, and so many of the conversations feel like these almost codependent conversations where it's the same conversation over and over. She's constantly hanging up on her husband, and they're having the same argument.
It's this incredibly hellish cycle sort of thing, yeah.
And then she's been in effect having the same conversation with her therapist, with Conan. Every time they talk, she's having the same conversation with her therapist.
Every time they talk, the same conversation with the family therapist. Every time she can't get out of a cycle.
And same conversation with her daughter.
Yeah, with the daughter, it's this relentless, and it gets worse, and the tension gets higher and higher. Like when I saw the film, I didn't move. I just sort of sat down and then went, whoa, and just was like strapped into a ride or something. I hadn't experienced something like that in the cinema for a while. It was Mary's such a creative talent. Mary Bronstein, our director, she's truly such a unique voice. I can't wait to see her, what else has in store.
She's only made a handful of films.
Yes, she made Yeast, which is a mumblecore kind of cult classic now, and now this film.
Yeah, but I mean, Yeast, there's not nearly the technique in that.
I know. As she puts it, things like garbage pail, scrappy. That was her words last night, which I loved. But she truly had this film in her head for a long time.
I guess I have to ask you what your first conversation with her about this was, because I can imagine you reading and saying, how do you make a movie out of this?
I read the script, and then we Zoomed, and I was like, are you sure you want me? I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is a gift to any actress or actor to like, that was my first initial take. Which is so depressing, right?
I'm not going to say you need therapy, but
that's what Mary said.
But I think because it's such a 180 for you, because you have played so many characters who in one way or another are ahead of things, and to play somebody who just at a point we realize she's just trying to breathe. That there's a scene where she's like on the phone running and trying to talk to her husband, and she can't get a breath, which for me is the most tense scene in the entire movie. Yes,
those phone calls were very specific, and we were very specific to have Christian on the phone, because when you're performing, he was always calling in, so that was so helpful, because there's such a difference when you're really talking to someone in a scene and when you're not. And there was so many phone calls. It's such a part of the storyline. It's their marriage, on the phone, and that thing on the phone with your husband or your wife, and how grating that can be in a time of stress. So he was terrific, and he's got such a specific voice too, Christian. So
it's funny because we hear his voice. You just wait to see if he's going to turn up or not. That becomes a kind of attention too.
Yes, I know. He does. I love that reveal at the end, and by that point, Linda looks so completely deranged. It's like, and you're not sure. It's like, that's what the film, the language is so great. What is in her head and what isn't. It starts to blur those lines. And I love those spaces where you're not sure where you are with the void and all those sort of things. I just live for that kind of stuff in a movie.
But you so often play characters who keep the game to themselves, and it must have been thrilling to get a chance to play somebody who just lets everything out all the time.
She's so aggressive. I know. I'm like the classic Aussie, like, okay, whatever you want, you know. And Linda's like, fuck you. She's so in your face. And it was incredibly fun. And just just filming the job was just keeping that kind of tension the whole time of someone in that state that they will snap at the smallest things and trying to thread the needle so it wasn't too, there was some so it wasn't, the repetition felt fresh every time, you know what I mean, that it was like trying to mark the escalation of it. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Well, no, it's first of all, there are these interesting things that gives us a sense of who she is. Like that scene where she drops a pizza, we think she's going to throw a fit, and instead she rolls with it.
Yes, yeah. We tried to start the film with a generous portrait of her, like where she was, and you see the warmth with her and her daughter, and the conceit in the movie of never seeing the daughter until the end was very daring, I think. And Mary and I talked about it a lot, but you don't know until you see it if it's going to work or if people will notice, how it will be perceived. And I felt like it was, the reveal at the end is heartbreaking to me as a mother. I was like very, very moved by that.
I mean, I thought that scene with the pizza, because that's a fight before you get home with it. Hey, you think, well, oh, she's so unhinged already. She's gonna blow up at this poor kid, and she handled it so well. That's why I thought she must have been a much different person earlier in her life. I mean, I just thought that was an important moment to put in because it's not just a crazy person. You see that when she can get her hand on things, literally get her hand on things, then she's fine.
Yeah, there was there. And I also think there was prior to Linda having this crisis, she was the kind of, I like the idea that she was a sort of like a former party animal as well, like with a few tattoos and this and that, and like had that life before, a bit punk, and that like the bad haircut underneath, you know, like those just hints like that to see someone from that kind of era to where they are now. That's what we were trying to kind of establish as well.
But it's also too this interesting portrait of a bunch of people who seem to have everything and don't know what to do with their lives. I mean, she certainly has access to all kinds of things. She has an incredible apartment. She can afford to stay someplace else. Which means
I know. No, the privilege, yes. The inherent privilege she has, and she can't recognize it yet. That was something Mary would always reference. She was very clear about Linda's flaws and her own inability to see everything she could access and could have help to and could, but the privilege was overwhelming.
I just wonder if it was exhausting doing this movie, because it's exhausting watching it.
No, it wasn't exhausting. It was adrenalizing. Like my adrenaline was up, and afterward I was drained, but you know, I have two little kids. They couldn't care less if I've had a long day or if I come back from work and I'm shattered. Like, they don't care. They're just like, hey, Mum, what about the blah, 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 blah? You know, so it's a very grounding experience being a parent. And I was so excited and terrified not to like mess it up that I just was so focused. And the amount of prep, we had 2 months of prep. Mary and I went over 3 days a week, and we would work for 8 hours a day just talking, going over every line, every pause, every paragraph, and often just telling stories too about parenthood or our lives. And that we had such a great dialogue before that when we got to set, I almost didn't have any more questions, you know, because I'd asked everything I could, and then it became more technical. Like, okay, where are we? How do I help you do this shot in the best way? And but that rehearsal period we had, which we don't get on a big movie or a TV show, and so we had this. Thank you actually to the strike, because it was around that period, but it was a saving grace for me.
I guess I think you've been kind of uniquely suited for this, because you can find comedy in areas where there is not presumably comedy on the page. Because the weeks before this, I started just rewatching Damages.
That's amazing. I love that.
Then I'd do research. It was all, it was
I
fun.
love that. I love that. I love Damages. I love Galactic. It's such a fun show.
It is a fun show.
It's a fun show.
That you describe to people, they go, and it's not a funny show, but it's fun in it. And part of
Very arch, but it's which I love. Like it's. Yeah.
also part of the fun is watching the actors really savoring the material. And we see that with you and Conan and you and ASAP in this. And I think but you also, you geared towards finding comedy where people would normally find it, I think.
Well, my favorite actors are always those, the ones who I revere comedic actors. I just think and I love to see, I also am a fan of seeing a comedic actor doing something dramatic, like Conan or I think.
Well, Martin Short on your show.
Martin Short is brilliant. Like, for me, that I'm still very intimidated by that. I find that like when I see, like the
really?
effortlessness of those things. Oh, I think it's such a hard needle to thread, and I love that balance. And I think comedic actors are underrated too. Like I feel like it's much harder to do comedy in many ways. And it's weirdly similar to, in a way, doing a horror movie because it's almost technical, the beats of comedy, I think, and the same with a horror movie. And not that Legs is a horror movie, but there's elements of that in there too.
See, I was going to ask you how you would describe it to people, because I've almost been saying...
Yeah, how I don't...
Because it's almost a horror comedy, but you try to define the genre, I think diminishes the movie.
Yeah, I agree. But people need that. They want to know, orientate themselves. But it's... I feel that reduction too, when you try to just put something in, I don't know, boxes and stuff.
Well, I feel like there's also a part of you too that likes to do genre stuff, tries to upend what genre is, because again, we go out to Damages, you just try to describe that as a legal drama. Well, no, it's not just.
No, it's not. It's and it's interesting. Damages came out the same year as Mad Men, so it was right at the beginning. I mean, obviously, the HBO had set the bar with Sopranos and 6 Feet Under and so on and Oz, but it was before the complete saturation of incredible, sophisticated cable dramas. So we came out at that time, and it was it's just so interesting looking back at the early days of that, and now obviously there's just so much sort of prestige TV, but I love it when I have such a soft spot for the show, and Glenn and I are still very close, and and I should revisit looking at it maybe. I'm not a fan of watching myself, but it'd probably be really entertaining.
Really, you're not a fan of watching yourself?
Oh, not greatly. I mean, I admire actors who can, though, because I think technically it's a brilliant idea. If you can separate yourself, and if you've been doing it long enough, you know your best performance and how to do it. And, I've worked with plenty of actors who go and watch the monitor, and I'm not there yet, but I admire that because I actually think it's really smart.
Because this is such a precise performance, but I think you often give really precise performances. I think there are cadences and then nuance verbally you're trying to get, because so often what she's saying, the words are really what she's trying to say emotionally, and we sort of hear the shakiness in the voice or the anger in her voice. And I feel like you would study it just because you've done a lot of demanding work.
Oh, thank you. It's funny. It's like...
Also, I didn't mean to compliment you.
No. I was going to say something really annoying, but like almost... What? Well... If I feel like if my performance is bad in something, it's entirely my fault. But if it's good, it's almost got nothing to do with me in a way, because it's all of the elements around you, like the script, the director, the sound design, the production, the other performances. Like that is what really elevates any experience of a performance. And of course, people shine in things that aren't necessarily that good, but I've just been doing it so long now. I always feel like it's it's out of your control whether you're perceived as good or not. But what's good is if it makes people feel something more than what they think, but how they feel if they see a performance that can move them.
Is that how you react based on your feeling when you read something? Because so much of what you've done, these things had pretty high emotional stakes.
I've definitely tried to operate from intuition, because everything else is so out of your control in terms of the business. So intuitively, it's always good to try to find that thing of a response. And I feel like a lot of actors operate like that if you can, when also like what comes your way, what doesn't, all those things are out of your control. But if you can try to stick with your intuition, then you can at least look back and go, well, I felt like that, and that connected with me then, and to try to remember that along the way.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, again, if you're trying to describe this movie, it's a horror movie where she's never actually scared on camera.
Well, she's a bit scared with the hole.
I think, well, I'm just trying to give too much away, but for the most part, she's kind of charging through. And our response is that she's so vulnerable. Usually so often we see that kind of character panicking in front of the camera or showing fear. And until that moment, she never shows fear.
No, that's true. It's that I think she's in such a state of anxiety. It's like an anxiety state that she is in, that it's like fight or flight the whole time a little bit. And that doesn't necessarily show, the fear, but it's more like the ability to keep moving and to try to escape, whether she's running, whether she's doing drugs, whether she's doing breath work, whether it's whatever these states of anxiety she's in, trying to get out of the situation of her reality, which is a different kind of fear in a way, but it feels like a driven thing. She's not stuck.
But that to me connotes definitely your director's confidence in you as an actor, also her confidence her confidence in the audience, because that's not leading the audience by the hand in the way that horror movies, even the more sophisticated ones, generally do, and basically draw a circle around the protagonist and say she's in jeopardy. The movie lets us feel that rather than explain it to us.
That's why I love it, because I don't want an answer. I want a feeling. And that is what I feel. For me, the best moments in cinema are those sorts of films where you may not get an answer, but you have an experience. And I feel like this movie is truly an experience, yes. Whether it's pleasant or not, but it is something that you will remember and you take with you. And, one of my favorite movies is Mulholland Drive. And the experience of seeing that movie is just, and even more so now, obviously, the legacy of the great David Lynch. But that film just still gives me goosebumps for the experience of it and the humor and everything. But also a scary movie, also undescribable in a way. And for me, on such a pedestal.
That actually begs a question that I was going to ask them. You led me to it, so thank you. If you watch things, prepare for doing something like this, because it's an enormously sophisticated movie. That's what you realize after it's over. All the things that it didn't do that it could have.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, all the things it didn't spoon feed you. I know. It's very bold. It's a bold movie, and I cherish being part of something like that.
But it's also, again, I think it's really sophisticated because it's a genre film. I think that explodes the genre.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think Mary set out to. It's punk. The movie's kind of punk, a little bit like Mary is, and that's what I feel taking away from it. For me, I think that's kind of at the heart of the filmmaking in a way.
Sure. But I wonder do you watch things in a case like this to get ready for it? I mean,
I'm not opposed to it. I didn't with this, but I definitely have in the past, specifically for a genre thing, whether it's a comedy or a horror or thriller or something like that. I'm so open to looking at the filmmakers' other, previous work to kind of get their tone and their language. With this, I didn't, I guess because we had such a long time to rehearse and talk, and we talked about people, we talked all around that stuff. So I didn't, for this one, I didn't feel the need to, but I'm totally open to that idea for inspiration too,
Well, but kind of a last question. I actually saw for the first time with an audience last night. What was that like?
It was nerve-wracking. I was relieved they were laughing, they were engaged. That's all you want is like a collective experience, as we were just talking about. And I felt like we had that, and I was thrilled for Mary. It was almost for her relief to have that, having had go through that. So it was very bonding and exciting.
I guess I have to say, and this will finally actually be the last thing, one of the things that's pleasurable about your work is I could feel your enjoyment as an actor in doing one of these things.
Oh, thank you. But that's good to feel because, I agree. I know when I see that in a performance of someone enjoying themselves, or loving to do it. I know what you mean.
Well, no more compliments. Let's thank Rose Byrne for being.
Thank you, Elvis.
Did you get who she's wearing for the
Oh,
rule of thumb? Just like